What's up, everybody? It is your resident super nerd, Jordan. The time is here. The year is here, and we're ready to crush some code. I'm here with my homeboy Carlos, and we're in episode 2. What are we doing today in episode 2?
So we're going to be talking about some CSS today. So in the last episode, we talked about HTML, but we're going to talk about how to connect the CSS to the HTML. But that's not till a little bit later. So we're going to be talking about CSS and what it is, and then we're going to be talking about some syntax in this episode, and then we'll get onto some of the little bit harder stuff later on.
So y'all ready? Let's break this down. Crush some code. What's up, everybody?
How's it going, guys?
Welcome back to the Code Crush crew.
This is Introduction to Web Development, CSS. Yesterday we covered some HTML. We talked about different kinds of languages. We talked about what HTML, specific type of language is. And we also introduced some syntax and some actual code for HTML. Today we're going to be talking about CSS and how to style our HTML sheets.
Absolutely. Let's get to crushing some code.
Let's go ahead and start doing it. So first of all, what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Cascading Style Sheets, and so I want to put emphasis on cascading because the way that the browser is going to interpret your data is from top to the bottom. So so it's literal. So cascading is the top from the bottom.
I like to think of it as a waterfall.
The waterfall
is always dumping into the water below.
Like an avalanche, like that too. And so what that also means is that if you have, say, some adjustments to the background of the entire body of your website, up top, on the top of your document, and then you also have something at the bottom of your document that says something similar, but instead of whatever green, it's now red, it will interpret the document or the background as red instead of green because it's close to the bottom. Which is interesting. And so going forward, CSS also describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on screen. So kind of going back to what we were saying, it'll change the background, it'll change the font size of your text, or change the image size of an image. CSS is also stored in its own file sheet, its own file, and separate away from the HTML. But it's also linked in together using some syntax or some code that I'll show you here in a bit. An interesting thing about CSS is that it's at the it's the highest level that its modules contain as far as progress is level 5, and that's different between other kind of languages or other kind of software because other kind of softwares use versions. The difference between CSS and other kind of software is that CSS uses levels, and so there are different modules inside of CSS that will have a different level. Some are level 1, level 2, level 3, up to 5. So to think about CSS4 as a new kind of version of the CSS3, which is kind of going on right now, or what was the last package to be released as a whole, is silly because there's currently different version or levels going within it.
Can I tell you what my favorite thing about CSS is?
Please.
Well, I'm a lazy coder, and I don't want to have to go and adjust things line by line.
Right.
And that's what I might have to do with my HTML document. But Carlos is going to show you how you can change almost the entire document or certain elements instead of having to go in there one line by line. So for a lazy coder like me, I love that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. And I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And we will start talking about that here soon. But we first have to talk about how CSS works. So like I said earlier, CSS data is added to a file, and then that file is linked over to the HTML document. I'll go ahead and start showing that here in a moment, but the tag is here below, so we'll have link rel is equal to style sheet, and then href is equal to style.css. So rel means relationship in this context, so it's asking, so it's the system's going to ask what kind of sheet this is, and so we have a style sheet, so it's determining this as something that's going to style this other document, and then we have the href, which is equal to style.css, and that's the actual name of the file that we have our CSS data in. So I can go ahead and bring that up. This is the file that we worked on yesterday. So we introduced the .type HTML, the HTML tag, We're just going to wrap all of your content, even your metadata. We have the head tag, which contains the metadata, and then the body tag, which has the content. So what we can do is we can go ahead and start linking in this tag. I'm going to go ahead and back out of my presentation for a moment. Select this, go back over using Alt-Tab. And I'm going to add this over to, I guess I already have it here. I'm going to add it over to the head tag. So I have link rel is equal to style sheet, href is equal to style.css. Right now, if I was to bring this up in the browser, nothing would show. It would be the same. It would be the same kind of thing that we showed yesterday. I'll go ahead and bring it up real quick just for.
For those of you running at home, how Carlos is going in between these pages so quick, that was the Alt-Tab he was talking about briefly. If you hit Alt and Tab on your keyboard one time, it'll scroll to the last page that you had open.
Yes, sir. And then if you hold Alt and then just keep holding Alt and hit Tab, you're able to cycle through it, which makes it cool too. But so now,
lazy coder tips.
the keyboard is essential. The keyboard is essential. Try to get away from the mouse. But so right now, so we have on the browser just my name. This is my first website, and then we have a little button right here. So if I wanted to change, say, the background to this entire body, I can do that. I can go ahead and show us right now. So I'm going to go ahead, or we can go ahead and go to File. We're going to go click on New File. And it's going to give us Untitled.1 because it's going to be a new file. I'm going to go ahead and save it right away. So I can I can click on Control S on my keyboard, so hitting Control and then S, or I can go to the top right left corner, click File, and then click on Save. It's going to bring me up to the File Explorer, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this as style.css, similar to I had it in my previous document that I added to HTML.
You do want to save this in the same folder that you're working with your HTML.
Indeed. So let's go ahead and show that really quickly. So this is the style file that I had just created, or the CSS file that I had just created, and this is the index file from the other day. So let's go ahead and create a new folder, and let's go ahead and give this folder
first project. Bam!
Name first project. Thank you. Okay, so I can either click on one of them and drag it over to the folder, and that's, I guess, what I did. Or I can hover over it by clicking in the corner and then dragging over the files that I want to drag over, and then click on that one and drag it over. So now they're all contained in one document, which is cool. So going back, hitting Alt-Tab, this one is deleted because so both of these are deleted because I created a new folder. I'm going to open the folder.
I'm going to give you a lazy coder story real quick while you're opening that back up. I used to think it was okay to save your index.html or your style.css on your desktop until you have about 50 of those files on your desktop and you don't know whose project is what. So this is why we really stress the importance of having that organization. Pop that thing into a folder there. That way you know which project you're working on, because eventually you're going to have 100 projects under your belt. You can't find that under your desktop. Back to you, Carlos.
Appreciate it. I am still trying to figure this out. I don't know. I lost my files.
So blammo, Carlos found those files.
Took me a little second, but I was just selecting the place. I was trying to open the folder up without opening the files up first. So again, this is the content that we had yesterday. We had our head tag and our body tag. We're going to be modifying right now using CSS. It's going to be everything that's within the body. So I want my header tag, my H1 tag, to be, blue. I want it to be blue. And I also want the background of the body to be, I don't know, what's a good color?
Green.
Green, blue and green. And so the way that I can do that is by using the selectors that we talked about in the previous episode. So what we can use is the class selector and the ID selector. The class selector is going to be denoted within the tag using the word class, and then you're going to say class is equal to, and then within quotation marks, you're going to have the name of the class that you want to set for that particular tag. It's going to be similar to ID, just instead of class, you're going to have ID, and then is equal to something in quotation marks. So we can go ahead and try that. So we said that we wanted the header tag to be blue. So I'm going to say H1, within the H1 class, I'm going to say H1 class is equal to, just quotation marks, I'm going to say name, because this is my name, and it will make it specific enough for me to remember at least what I want it to do. As far as the background goes, I don't have any kind of nesting, is what it's called. Nesting is when you have tags within a tag. So say if I had like a paragraph tag inside this H1 tag or something like that. Or like if I have a div tag and then I have a paragraph tag or the rest of this content inside of that, that would be nesting. So it's just kind of like, the idea of nesting is kind of like, what are the Russian dolls called?
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. The T guy that you could put about 50 in the little T guys inside the T guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of a good example.
Yeah, that's what nesting is. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and go over to our style.css file. And so, say I want to, so exciting thing about CSS is there's a lot of ways to be able to do one thing. To modify the background for all of the website, what you can do is you can add what's called, it's based on the term, but what this does is that it affects the entirety of the document without you having to specify where it has to go. So if you want your entire document to be a specific kind of font, you can say star and then add a pair of brackets after that. And then within those brackets, you start modifying the CSS.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, I can do that. I can definitely do that. So let's go ahead and change that background like we want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and say background color. So what's also nice about Visual Studio is that it will give you different options similar to what you want. And so I want background color, and then I wanted a blue color. Or what was it? Green?
Green and blue are our two selections.
Green was the background, blue was the font. And so now I have background color as green, which is cool. But I specifically want to target my name Carlos. So since I had set the name or the class to name for that tag, I can go ahead and say dot and then name, and then add brackets around it, the curly brackets. And then I can go ahead and say color, making sure to have a colon between my attribute and my value, or my property and my value, excuse me. And so my property is going to be the color, and then my value is going to be what color I want it to be. And I want it to be blue. Ending it with a semicolon so that this section knows that that's the final statement. On a side note, if you only have one item within each declaration, you don't have to have the semicolon at the end of it, but it's good practice to be able to put the semicolon at the end of it, so in case you need to add something else to that bracket or to that declaration, you're able to do that without having to go back up and add a semicolon and possibly make a mistake.
I want to jump in on another point real quick. I don't know if you guys remember earlier, but Carlos had said that we have two different things, classes and IDs. And when we're using our syntax, or excuse me, we're writing it in our CSS, we're going to denote our classes with a dot and whatever that particular class name is. So in this particular instance, our class actually was name because we're referring to Carlos's name on the document. Later, we're going to introduce something called IDs, and they are identified using the hashtag or the pound symbol. And I have a corny little thing that I like to tell people when we get a little bit further into IDs, but it'll help you to kind of remember if it's a class or if it's an ID and how to write it correctly in your CSS document. Take it away.
Sweet. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for clarifying. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Let's see if this is actually applying and this is actually working. So you can't just save the CSS file, right? And I did that by pressing Control S, Control Save, and then I'll go ahead and do it again on the index.html file, Control Save, or you can go up to File and click on Save. Now we will need to go to our File Explorer, and we will have to bring up this file up in the browser.
I can't stress the importance enough of saving, too, before you check your project on the screen. I can't tell you how many times somebody's been like, there's no difference on my screen. And the first thing we ask is, when's the last time you saved? So
yes,
often
exactly.
Just go ahead and save to make sure you can apply the changes to your either HTML or CSS.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, many hours lost to not saving, many hours lost. But so as we can see on this TV, we have the background as green, and we have the header as the blue color that we kind of set it to. So so let's actually go back to the slide and look a little bit over some of the information that we have on there, because I think we might have jumped ahead a little bit.
Now, player, I want you to change something else. Add some color to that button real quick.
All right, let's do it. Okay, cool. I like the challenge. So actually, since I used class, we can go ahead and introduce how to use the ID in here. So let's go ahead and do ID is equal to, and then in quotation marks, let's go ahead and say, well, this is a button. Let's say home button. Let's say home button. Cool. And so this is more interesting than it seems, because I'm showing you how to use the ID in the ID selector in HTML, but I'm also introducing you to camel casing. So we have home button as the ID in this tag, but then we also have if we look at it, looking back at the screen, we have home button, we have a capital B. So that's the camel case. That's the home from the camel. So that is a better way. That is good syntax or good use of what's a better word for it? Good syntax.
Yeah,
good
your
syntax.
camel casing.
Yeah.
But it's a different way to identify what you're working with on that document. So a lot of times people will use it for their IDs, and it's another visual clue of what your kind of code you are engaging with in that document.
Right. Yeah. It definitely makes it easier to read too, and easier to see after a while. But cool. Yeah. Let's go ahead and save that. So ID is equal to home button, and we can go back over to the style.css file, and as Jordan was saying earlier, we will use the pound sign instead of the period for IDs. So we can go ahead and say pound and how do I say it? Home button. So home button, and then the curly brackets, and then what color were you thinking, Jordan?
Red.
Red. All right, let's do background color, because using color in this context, like we did on line 6 for the class name, is going to modify the font color. So when you use color, it's going to modify the font color. If you want to modify the background color, you're going to use background color. So
Take the right click away just so they can see what line you had highlighted there for a second.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That's a good little clarification there.
Yeah, so yeah, the difference between having color and background color is that color is going to apply to the font, while background color is going to actually apply to the background. So we have home button with the background color, and what was it again?
Red.
Red. Cool. All right, and we can go ahead and save that. I'm going to go ahead and do Alt-Tab, move back over to the file, or to the browser, and I'm going to refresh it. And now we have a nice red button.
Easy peasy, like he said.
It's ready and available for you. Ready and available. And so yeah, now we got a little red button. Alrighty, everybody, that'll be the end of this episode. So today we covered CSS, we talked about some syntax. In future episodes, we will be talking about how to actually implement that into our HTML. So stick tuned. Jordan has something else to say.
Hopefully you had some fun today. You know we're going to continue crushing the code. If you have any questions, hit us up, info@Cultivating Coders. We will be responding to a lot of these questions in future episodes. So if you want to get in touch with us, something didn't make sense, you need a little further explanation, let us know. We're there to help you out.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.